It's our usual Monday discussion with the former head of National Football League refs, who now holds down a position telling us what the refs are doing or should be doing or aren't doing correctly on Fox during all the games on Fox Collegiate and National Football League. And his glasses are off, which means I believe, Mike Pereira, you're set to give us the proper line to start this segment.
Let's get ready to rumble,
Nicely
baby.
done, Mike Pereira. Let's get ready to rumble. You're sitting there in the Dan Patrick man cave there in New York City, and the first play is something that a lot of people further up the turnpike, the Mass Pike in Massachusetts, are talking about today, Mike Pereira. The first play up for bids to discuss with you is that Brandon Browner hit on Ladarius Green on Sunday Night Football. It looked like it was a shoulder-to-shoulder hit after further review. And a pick six was taken off the board, called a helmet-to-helmet hit by Bill Levy, and it sure looked like their helmets never collided. Was this the proper call in your estimation, Mike Pereira?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It's not helmet-to-helmet, and I really blame Bill Levy for making that comment and his crew for making that comment, because once you do that, you put yourself in the box. The one thing that I would say, I think this play here might be the one that leads this play, ended up being reviewed next year. But when you look at the one angle, remember, you can't make any contact of the head or neck area with your helmet, your shoulder, or your forearm. And when you look at it from the back side, you actually have shoulder contact right to the face mask, and you see the head jar. And so here's what I say. Although there's not helmet-to-helmet contact, if you make this reviewable, which I think they will, to me, they wouldn't have overturned it because of the shoulder contact. But Bill Levy and the input that he got from his officials painted himself into an awful corner because it's not helmet-to-helmet.
Well, and the issue is, though, interesting that you said that if this was reviewable, the play would have stood as called. What is the exact rule? Because there has to be some gray area involved here, that this certainly 10 years ago would have been a legal hit, 20 years ago a legal hit. And I understand there's different science, and we understand about player safety a little bit more in this 21st century, but still at some point, football has to be football, and that did not seem to be malicious. It did not seem to be any intent other than what a defensive back should be doing, which is separating the football from the wide receiver, Mike Pereira.
Gotcha. Now, let's just understand that, but let's go where the rule is. And the rule is a defenseless receiver. That's a receiver in the process of making the catch. What you cannot do is hit him in the head or neck area with your helmet, your shoulder, or your forearm. What is the head and neck area? This was actually defined to the officials as being above the V, where the V is on the jersey, anywhere from that area up. And if you make forcible contact with the shoulder, forearm, or head to any of that area, then that's what the foul is. Nobody likes it. Certainly defenders don't like it. And I think those of us that watch it maybe understand it, but it's changed the dynamic of the game. But the players are told, lower your target. That means get to the waist, get to the chest, but stay away from that head or neck area. And it's just a consequence of where we are in the game today. And I agree, because these are such emotional hits. I really do agree that it's time to make them reviewable. But I would say this, the amount of times that the officials are wrong for one of these hits on defenseless receivers pales in comparison to the number of times that they're wrong on defensive pass interference, which may involve a 40-yard penalty. So it has much worse consequences than these. So, I think if they do open it up to this, then I think they got to look at it, open it up beyond this to make other plays like interference, which are more egregious, the penalty's more egregious than this, make them reviewable too.
But you say that'll never happen, right, Mike?
No, I'm not saying it'll never happen. I mean, I think that once you get to the point where you make this reviewable, then I think maybe you consider it. But, there are a lot of people, and you've said this too, that, it wouldn't add any more challenges to the game because the coaches only get two as it is. And if they get both of those right, they get a third. But, they no longer have to challenge on turnovers or scoring plays. And so if you look at the stats, I mean, the most challenges by any one coach so far this year through 14 weeks now is 8. So 8 when they could have challenged 28 times up to this point, or more if they'd been in a game with 2 right. So You would add a lot more challenges if you opened it up to everything, but I get the fact. And to me, nothing used to pain me more than a 40-yard incorrect pass interference call that cost a defensive team 40 yards or gave the offense a bonus that they clearly should have gotten.
Mike Pereira, the former head of NFL refs and Fox Sports, Mike Pereira, joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show from the DP Man Cave in New York City. I want to move on to a play that has a lot of Kansas City fans outraged as the Chiefs were moving down the field for either a go-ahead score or a game-tying field goal that they never got. Travis Kelce collects the ball, runs upfield, tumbles over, and the ball comes loose after it appears that he is down by contact, which was the ruling on the field. But after further review, it's changed to a fumble. Now, I do see Kelce does begin to potentially have the ball jarred loose as he's going down to the ground, but it also looks like he has it in his fingertips as he comes back through it and gets the ball knocked away. Do you think there was enough to see under the hood to reverse this, Mike?
Yes, and the fact is you do see the ball come loose. And, of course, remember now they've got sophisticated equipment where they're looking at it frame by frame and they could see the ball out. Second part, did he actually recover the ball after it was fumbled? And remember, it's just like making a catch. You have to maintain control after you hit the ground. You know, the problem is Mike Carey, myself, we're all out there making opinions, and Mike Carey said that, you know, that this would not be overturned because it wasn't clear. But then, to his credit, he went back and looked at it after the fact and tweeted out and said, I made a mistake. The league was right. The ball was loose. There wasn't a clear recovery by the Kansas City player. So he did admit that the play was officiated right. But again, you know, it's interesting because replay to me has functioned at its best this year. And what we all focus on is the fact that the percentage of overturns is way down. And so anytime when you get an overturn, it seems like, wow, how can we have an overturn? There was some closeness to that. But the ball was loose, and it wasn't clearly possessed until the Arizona player got the ball. And so, you know, the ruling was made, and at least in my opinion, I think it was the right ruling.
But it just looks to me that if the ball wasn't pulled away from Kelce's fingertips while he's down on the ground, he would have had an opportunity to collect it, and he'd already possessed it. He'd already gotten the catch as he is rumbling down the field, Mike. The question is when does a fumble begin? Does it begin if it just begins sliding it down from a cradled position where somebody has all 4 points of pressure and then it starts sliding down your body as you're going down to the ground? Is that considered a jarred, loose football under review?
The fumble begins when you lose possession of the ball. The one thing that we have always said, whether it is catching a pass at the sideline or if it's a fumble recovery, the ball's going to move, all right? We understand that. The ball is going to move. The laces are going to move. The question is, does the hand come off the ball? Does he actually lose possession of the ball? And you know, I'm lucky at where I work at Fox. They give me great equipment. It's almost as good as the equipment that they have at the stadiums or in New York, and I can run things back and forth just as they can. And the ball, to me, was clearly loose. That wasn't a question. The recovery was the second question. And to me, again, and I've been through this so many times before when I was there, I hate it. I helped ruin the rule. But nevertheless, it is the rule. Now it's all about maintaining control, not whether you have it for a second. And to me, he didn't maintain it, and that's why it went to the defensive team.
Mike Pereira, Fox Sports, former head of NFL refs.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.